Alright, welcome back. So today hopefully we're going to be tackling the last major part of this resurfacing project and repair, and that would be sealing the joint. Like, that's the big thing that we have here. I already did some prep work, so you can see it's taped, and if you look inside you can see it looks very nice and fresh. That's because I did replace the backing rod in there. After a few iterations, it was pretty banged up. I mean, you can see it right here. That's actually, outside of the fact that it actually sank into the joint quite a bit more than it should be, it's also banged up. You can see it turn up the way I was picking up and pushing it in. That's not good for this backing rod because that's open cell. And that means once you cut it, it will release air bubbles. So then you put sealant on top, yeah, it can bubble up. So, but yeah, in general it didn't look particularly good. So I replaced the backing rod. Again, I didn't really have the proper size for that. That's ideal. I would probably need to have about an inch here for backing rod, so it will actually fit well. So I had again to undo the braid or twist. That's not ideal, but that works fine. The problem what I may have, we'll see, is that the sealant that I'm using is fairly low viscosity, so it may just seep into some of the holes here, so we'll see about that. They're pretty tight, so generally you need to have at least half. The sealant depth should be about half of the joint width, but for any traffic area like this one, because it's driveway, so vehicle traffic, you will need to have half an inch basically depth that you need to put your backing rod into, so half an inch of the sealant on top, and that's what we're gonna do. So here is what we're going to be using today, and that's Sika Pro, and specifically self-leveling sealant. Alright, so Sika is a very good, well-known brand name in sealants. So there's that, and this particular self-leveling means it flows. You can't use it on vertical joints, like there for instance. Yeah, you can't use that, it will just fall off or flow down. But it's great for the horizontal joints, such as exactly what we have here, because then in all likelihood you don't need to tool it, as in you fill it in a proper height and then it just stays completely horizontal without you doing anything. We'll see about that, if it's going to work or not. So there are a couple of things what we're going to be using. So you can use just a regular manual caulking gun. It's very cheap. Okay, let me just put the camera back. So yeah, so you can use just the regular caulking gun. So you pull it out, you put the cartridge in, push it, and then you pump to squeeze. I've been using it for a while. It works, but if you need to do any significant amount of caulking, it gets tiring fast. But more importantly, it's not super uniform to do. It's kind of it's not hard to control, but yeah, it requires some effort, and if you have to do several things at the same time, that's not ideal. So I figured I'm gonna try something else, and that's this one. So basically that's a cordless caulking gun that pretty much automates pushing. So you have the same general setup, except that when you press the button here, it will start squeezing out the sealant, and you can control how fast this process is going to go. So we'll see how it goes. So that's what we're going to use. Then what else do we need? So gloves. I like to use these more heavy duty ones, not the regular kind of blue variety. The reason being the blue gloves are usually very thin, and in this application I found, especially if I want to tool a little bit here and there, they just tend to tear very quickly, and yeah, sealant tends to get into your skin, which is not a big deal by itself, but this stuff is urethane. It's very sticky, so once it's on your skin it may stay there for quite a while, maybe for a week, before it kind of gets it. Which also brings us to a point of cleanup. It's going to stick to just about anything where it grows. While there are ways to clean it up while it hasn't cured, like I think mineral spirits or something like that, but realistically that doesn't work really well, and once it's cured, the only way to get it off is mechanical, so that means basically scraping. So the best way to deal with that kind of cleanup is not to get stuff you don't want dirty in the first place, and that's why I'm planning to do a lot of paper towels. They work great, but the important part is just to be careful and not to trip the sealant anywhere else outside of the joint. So again, we probably won't need tooling, just according to the manufacturer, but check it out. That's just a regular plastic spoon, and you can do it just like that. It works great for those wide joints. There are specialized tools, of course, but this one works great. It's plastic, so it's not sticky really. You can use some soapy water for cleanup and for tooling. Again, manufacturer doesn't recommend it really in this particular case, but generally speaking it works, so might as well. And that's mostly it. So I think we should just get started. So I'll use my utility knife to cut the tip here. Then I'll need to pierce the foil, which is like right here. There's this pin right there, but I prefer not to use the one on the gun because then it gets dirty and it just gets messy. So I'll just use some other thing right there. So let's get started. And that's it. That's the prep work is done. Now I just need to press the trigger and it will start flying. one extra thing that you may or may not want to do, I'll try to do that, is if you leave the sealant like that, I'll show you how it looks like in a second, but that looks good, but it will dry as a fairly smooth surface, like rubbery surface. Won't be looking exactly like concrete around, because that's more rough. So, and sometimes it has different color. I mean, in this case it's actually not too bad, because this is fairly gray and this is very gray. So what some people do is just to take some clay sand or any kind of sand with small grain and just sprinkle on top, so just to make some kind of surface. It will adhere to the top layer of the sealant, it won't affect it. But the surface would be more like that sand, or at least this rough, and well, we'll see if it's gonna work. So right now, this is how it looks like. As you see, it leveled very well. No issues, I really didn't have to do any tooling here. So yeah, looking good. So I'll just try to sprinkle a little bit of sand on top. As you can see, just a regular sand. Alright, and now the last part is just to take the tape off while it's still wet, so we don't have to pull it away from the cured sealant, so that should make it neat and tidy. Just make sure you pull towards the joint, not away, because then you will not be pulling away the sealant from the joint. And that's that for now. We need to do some cleanup, and we'll obviously need to remove excess sand later on when it cures. But that should be good. Well, we'll see. See you soon.